The school hallway was a sea of moving bodies and slamming lockers. Layla adjusted the heavy straps of her backpack, her mind already on the history exam. Beside her, her best friend, Yasmin whispered nervously about dates. Suddenly, the world tilted. A student shoved past with mindless aggression, sending Layla crashing into the cold metal lockers. Her textbooks hit the floor with a deafening thud. Before she could react, the bully's foot swung out, kicking her notebook and ripping the cover away like it was nothing. Kneeling on the floor, Layla felt the heat of humiliation rise in her cheeks as she scrambled for her papers. Then, a shadow blocked the fluorescent light. Nick stepped forward, his movements sharp and decisive. He grabbed the bully's collar, pinning him against the wall with a low growl.
Leave her alone.
He warned, his eyes like ice.
If I see you near her again, you will regret it.
The bully scrambled away into the crowd. Nick turned to Layla, his face softening instantly.
You are Layla, right?
Layla looked up, surprised. Yes, how did you know? She asked breathlessly. Nick smiled. She smiles shyly back.
I noticed you in class.
A shy smile touched her lips, a moment of warmth in the cold hallway. When he asked for her number, she hesitated for only a heartbeat before handing him her phone. It felt like a new beginning, but the weight of her torn books reminded her of the cost. She watched him walk away, her heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. After the final bell, the air turned cold. Yasmin pulled Layla aside, her voice tight with disapproval.
I saw you with him. You know it is not our way to be friends with guys like that.
Layla snapped her arm away, her face flushing with anger. He helped me when no one else would, she cried. Yasmin shook her head sadly.
Do not lose your dean for a boy.
But Layla was done listening. Stop talking to me like a child, she screamed, storming away toward a home that suddenly felt like a cage. Dinner was a suffocating silence. Her father's reminder of her duties felt like a heavy weight. I am not in the mood, she muttered, avoiding her father's worried eyes. The screech of her chair against the tile echoed her internal scream as she fled to her room. She sat on her bed in the dark, the silence absolute. Then, a soft buzz. The screen lit up with a message from Nick.
Hey, are you okay? I was thinking about you.
The light of the phone was the only thing she could see. The blue light of the smartphone is the only thing illuminating Layla's world tonight. She bites her lip, her heart racing as 10 minutes slip away into the digital void. She decides to text him back. Her thumb hovers, trembling over the glass. Hey, thanks for defending me at school, she finally types. It feels like a heavy weight being lifted, yet a new one is settling in. She stares at the sent message, whispering to her reflection. This is just innocent texting, nothing more. The phone vibrates violently against the wood, a rhythmic pulse that makes her breath catch. It's Nick.
Anytime. See you at school tomorrow.
A soft smile forms, one she tries to hide from herself. She takes a deep breath. Relax. He is just being nice. He is not interested in me. By morning, the light is different, hopeful, yet terrifying. She adjusts her hijab in the mirror, her fingers fumbling with nervous energy. The school hallway is a sea of noise. But then she sees him. Nick moves through the crowd with a confidence that stops time.
Good morning,
he says, his eyes locking onto hers. Layla can only look down, fiddling with her bag as her cheeks flush deep red. As the bell rings, Yasmin appears as a shadow of reality. Layla looks startled as Yasmin stands close with her arms crossed. Yasmin interrogates her about Nick.
Why is he still talking to you?
Yasmin asks, her brow furrowed with suspicion. Layla keeps her eyes forward, her voice thin as she claims he is just being nice. But Yasmin's words cut through the air.
I think he likes you.
Layla stops walking abruptly. Me? Why would he like someone like me? The panic rises, a mix of fear and a secret, forbidden joy she isn't ready to name. Don't be ridiculous. He is just being nice. It's not a big deal. Inside the classroom, the air feels heavy. Layla sits rigid, sensing Nick directly behind her. Suddenly, a folded piece of paper slides onto her desk. She glances back to see his charming, effortless smile. The ink on the page is a dare.
Skip class with me.
Her hand grips her pen until her knuckles turn white. Her loyalty to her life clashing with the pull of his world. She thinks to herself, "No, I can't." She stays seated, a prisoner of her own conscience while he walks out. Later, the hallway is a ghost town. She steps out, hoping and fearing he might be there. And he is. But the image shatters her. He is laughing with another girl, someone stylish, someone who fits his world perfectly. The sting is physical. Layla turns and runs, the sound of emotional strings swelling in her ears. She finds a quiet stairwell, leaning against the cold stone as she gasps for air. What is wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? She cries out to the empty space. Yasmin finds her there, breathless and concerned. When Layla confesses she saw him with someone else, Yasmin's voice is firm.
And? Why do you care? Forget about him, Layla. Focus on your studies and your dean.
The words are a cold splash of water. Layla nods slowly, the tears drying on her face. You are right. It is for the best. I will try to forget about him. Yasmin smiles. The warmth of home feels like a lie. Her mother, Amina, greets her with a smile and a question she can't answer. How was school? It was fine. Layla lies, her head down. Even her father's gentle concern feels like a burden.
You stormed out of dinner last night. What happened?
It's nothing. I had an argument with Yasmin. I felt overwhelmed.
Don't hesitate to talk to us.
He says. He looks at her with care. The guilt is a sharp pang in her chest. It's nothing important, she tells them. She feels embarrassed to mention Nick to her parents. She knows they wouldn't approve of him. She retreats to the sanctuary of her room, but the darkness offers no peace. She stares at her phone, waiting for a text message from Nick. Her phone glows. A message from Nick.
Where were you? I didn't see you.
Layla stares at the screen for a long, painful beat. She realizes the cycle must end here. She places the phone face down, the light vanishing. I can't keep doing this, she whispers to the ceiling. I'm developing feelings for him, and I have to let go. The hallway floor was a blur of scuffed tiles and frantic footsteps. Layla kept her gaze fixed on the lockers, counting the rows to avoid looking up. Her knuckles were white, buried deep into the straps of her bag, as if holding on to them kept her from unraveling. Every time a voice echoed near her, she pressed her lips together and repeated the same phrase under her breath. Just forget about him. Just keep walking. The air in the corridor felt heavy, thick with the scent of floor wax and the low roar of hundreds of students moving toward their first period. She tightened her grip until the webbing of the bag bit into her skin. She reached the threshold of her classroom, her pace slowing to a shuffle. Her chest tightened, a sharp, rhythmic thudding against her ribs. She paused, forcing herself to take a shallow, controlled breath. The door stood open, revealing the room beyond. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the frame, knowing that once she crossed that line, there was no turning back. She squeezed her eyes shut for a heartbeat, whispered the mantra one last time, and stepped into the room. The room was loud, a chaotic blend of slamming desks and overlapping conversations. Layla scanned the rows, her eyes darting between chairs until they locked onto the third row. Nick was there, leaning toward a girl, his head tilted in an easy, laughing gesture. Layla felt a sudden, sharp coldness in her stomach. She did not stop walking, but her path shifted immediately. She bypassed the empty seats in the middle and navigated toward the very last row, sliding into a corner desk shadowed by a tall bookshelf. She dropped her bag with a heavy thud, the sound swallowed by the room's noise. She pulled her notebook open, the paper stark and white. Her hand moved before she even realized it, pen digging into the page. She began to draw lines, frantic and jagged, slashing across the sheet without purpose. Each stroke was a distraction, a way to keep her vision pinned to the desk surface. She did not look up. She did not blink. She focused entirely on the friction of the ink against the grain of the paper, trying to drown out the sound of Nick's laughter with the repetitive scratching motion of her own hand. The final bell cut through the air, a sharp, jarring sound that ended her frantic scribbling. Layla moved with mechanical efficiency, sliding her notebook into her bag and shoving her pens into the side pocket. She stood, not waiting for the crowd to thin, and headed straight for the door. She kept her head down, eyes tracking the scuffs on the linoleum, intent on crossing the threshold and vanishing into the hallway. She reached the frame and pulled, but a heavy hand landed on the door, pulling it shut before she could pass. She stopped, her back stiffening. Nick stood right in front of her, blocking the exit. He did not move aside. He looked down at her, his expression tight, waiting for her to look up. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor.
Why are you ignoring me? Is something wrong?
He asked, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the surrounding noise. She forced her voice to remain steady, though her throat felt tight. "I cannot be friends with you," she said, hoping he would object or show some kind of care. Nick held his position for a moment, then shrugged, his posture shifting into indifference.
All right. Suit yourself.
He stepped aside, leaving her standing alone in the doorway as he turned and walked away into the crowd. The walk home was usually a quiet period, but today the air felt heavy and stagnant. Layla walked fast, her bag pulling at her shoulder, her mind still cycling through the exchange at the classroom door. She turned the corner toward the narrow alleyway that cut through the residential blocks. The street was empty. Then, from the shadow of a brick wall, a figure stepped out, effectively barring the sidewalk. Layla stopped instantly, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was a student she recognized from her history class, someone who had never spoken to her before. He did not move aside. Instead, he leaned back against the wall, crossing his arms, his mouth curving into a sneer. He took a slow step toward her, forcing Layla to retreat until her heels hit the curb. He called out, his voice echoing too loudly in the quiet street.
Hey, Muslim girl. Where's your protector now?
He circled her, his eyes cold and mocking. He kept his distance just enough to be untouchable while closing off her escape route. Layla stood frozen, her hands gripping the straps of her bag until her knuckles turned white. She looked for an opening, but every time she shifted, he moved to mirror her, ensuring she remained trapped against the concrete edge of the street. The bully took another step, his shadow falling over her, his grin widening as he sensed her paralysis. Layla braced herself, staring at the ground, unable to find a way past him. Just as he opened his mouth to speak again, the air behind her shifted. A sudden, heavy force pushed past her shoulder, lunging directly at the bully. Before he could react, Nick slammed into him, shoving him backward with enough momentum to send him sprawling hard onto the pavement. The bully let out a sharp cry as he hit the ground, his mocking expression instantly replaced by wide-eyed panic. Nick did not wait. He stepped forward, looming over the bully, his hands balled into fists at his sides. He leaned down, his voice a low, vibrating growl.
I told you to leave her alone.
The bully scrambled backward, his boots scraping against the asphalt as he kicked himself upright. He did not look back. He sprinted away, his footsteps fading rapidly down the street. The silence that followed was absolute. Layla stood still, her breath coming in shallow, jagged hitches, her gaze shifting from the empty street to Nick, who remained standing between her and the direction the bully had fled. Layla kept her eyes on the ground, her fingers still shaking as she gripped her bag. She looked up, her voice barely audible. "Thanks again. You did not have to do that." Nick turned to face her, his expression unreadable.
Should I let him bully you?
Layla looked away, unable to sustain the intensity of his gaze. Nick took a half step closer, lowering his voice.
If you want to repay me, meet me at the library.
Layla frowned, her mind racing. Why should I? Nick leaned back, his posture relaxed.
I want you to be my tutor. You are smart and different. Other girls throw themselves at me, but you do not. I like that about you.
The words struck a chord, and a heat rose to her cheeks. She nodded slowly, not trusting herself to speak. In her mind, she mapped out a plan. She would help him with his assignments, but she would keep her distance. She would build a wall between them that he could not cross. Nick watched her for a long moment, then turned toward the main road. Layla remained on the sidewalk, caught in the sudden weight of her own decision, watching him walk away while the implications of their next meeting settled in her chest. The library was a tomb of hushed voices and turning pages. Layla sat across from Nick, her textbook open, the words blurring as she tried to focus on the geometry problems. Nick leaned forward, his fingers tapping the table, waiting for her explanation. Layla started to speak, but the sudden vibration of her phone against the hard wood cut through the silence. She looked down. A message from Yasmin glowed on the screen.
Where are you? Did you forget the Quran lesson at the mosque?
Layla froze. The weight of the question pressed against her ribs. She looked at Nick, then back at the screen. The conflict was sharp and immediate. She saw the familiar name, the reminder of the space she was supposed to be in, and the expectation of her faith. Her thumb hovered over the glass. She felt a cold prickle of guilt, but she did not hesitate. She typed a quick, hollow response. "Sorry, I cannot make it." She hit send and immediately flipped the phone face down, burying the screen against the table. She looked up at Nick, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. The space between them felt smaller now, charged with the weight of her choice. Nick did not notice the tension. He simply leaned back, his chair creaking against the linoleum floor. He watched her for a moment, then tilted his head with a casual, easy smile.
You do not have to be shy with me. You can consider me your big brother.
The word brother hit the air like a physical blow. Layla felt a sharp, cold sting in her chest, as if the breath had been knocked out of her. She stared at her notebook. Nick glanced at his watch, oblivious to the change in her posture. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly.
I have to go. I am meeting Sarah tonight.
He did not wait for a response, just turned and walked toward the exit. The heavy library doors swung shut behind him with a final, hollow thud. Layla sat alone in the sudden, suffocating silence. She kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. Why am I feeling jealous again? He doesn't like me. Even if he did, I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend. What does he see in Sarah that he doesn't see in me? Is it because of the way I dress? My hijab? Is it because of my religion? Layla walked through the front door, her boots striking the hardwood with unnecessary force. She did not look toward the kitchen where Amina stood. She went straight for the stairs, her grip on her bag so tight her knuckles turned white. When Amina spoke a soft greeting,
Assalamu alaikum,
Layla did not pause. She kept her pace, reached her room, and slammed the door. The frame rattled. She stood in the center of the small room, chest heaving, the silence of the house feeling like an accusation. A moment later, the handle turned. Amina stepped inside, her expression calm but searching. She spoke quietly.
Replying to salam is a duty of a Muslim, Layla.
Layla spun around. The frustration she had carried home erupted. She looked at her mother, her eyes hard. I am thinking of taking my hijab off. I feel ugly and targeted everywhere I go. She pulled at the fabric near her temples. A sharp, desperate gesture. She waited for the shock to register on Amina's face. Amina moved slowly, crossing the room to sit on the edge of the bed. She did not raise her voice. She reached out, her hand finding Layla's shoulder, steady and warm.
You were so excited to start wearing it when you were a child. Do not let the pressure of this moment change who you are. Your faith is the most valuable thing you possess. If you take your hijab off, you might distance yourself further away from Islam. Hijab helps you to protect yourself from other sins. It's a reminder for you and others that you are a Muslim. It is your crown.
She leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to Layla's forehead, then stood and walked out, leaving the door slightly ajar. Layla stayed still. The room was quiet. She turned toward the vanity mirror. She looked at the fabric framing her face. She touched the material with trembling fingers. The reflection showed a girl split in two, one side longing for acceptance in a world that felt hostile, the other anchored to the beliefs she had held since she was small. She did not take it off. She did not move. She simply stared, the weight of the choice pressing down on her shoulders as the house settled into darkness. The school bell screams through the crowded cafeteria, a harsh reminder of duty. Yasmin corners Layla by the cold metal lockers, blocking her path with a stern gaze.
Assalamu alaikum, bestie.
Wa alaikum assalam.
We have a Quran lesson today. Don't forget again.
I will make it. I have been distracted with schoolwork, she mutters, her voice barely a whisper. Yasmin steps closer, invading her space.
Is it schoolwork? Or is it Nick?
Layla freezes, the silence between them heavy with unspoken judgment. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm only helping him with schoolwork.
I've known you since we were kids. I've never seen you like this over a boy. I told you to forget about him. Why do you keep talking to him?
I'm only helping him. We are just friends, she says, defensive.
When a man and a woman are alone together, the third one is Shaitan. You are inviting trouble you cannot handle.
Yasmin walks away without a backward glance, her final words drifting over her shoulder like a warning, her face flushed. She refused to acknowledge the warning, choosing instead to stare blankly at the wall of lockers. The hallway emptied, leaving Layla standing in the sudden, ringing silence of the locker bay. She exhaled, her shoulders dropping as she reached for her locker combination. The metal door groaned open, but before she could stash her books, a shadow fell across the opening. She turned, and there was Nick, leaning casually against the adjacent locker, his presence sudden and jarring.
Hello there.
He said, his voice dropping into a register that made the air feel thinner. Layla jumped, the textbook slipping from her fingers and hitting the floor with a dull thud. She bent to retrieve it, her pulse quickening. Nick did not move to help. Instead, he watched her, his smile tight and unreadable.
You look like you have seen a ghost.
Layla gripped the handle of her locker, her knuckles white.
You are invited to a party tonight at 9.
He said, the words cutting through her hesitation. Layla straightened, her grip tightening on the book. My parents will never allow it, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Nick pushed off the locker, closing the distance between them until he stood just inches away. He brushed his hand against the metal door, blocking her only exit path.
They will be fine,
he said, his tone dismissive.
You are not a child, Layla. Stop living like one.
He turned to walk away, pausing only to glance back.
Just stay for 1 hour. Wear something nice.
He vanished around the corner, leaving the space saturated with the weight of the choice he had just forced upon her. The bedroom door clicked shut, sealing out the noise of the house. Layla paced the small room, her footsteps muffled by the rug. She checked her watch. The time for the lesson had passed. A heavy, hollow sensation settled in her gut. She could already hear the disappointment in the voice of Yasmin. Yasmin is going to be so angry at me. She crossed to the center of the room and stopped, her hands hovering in the air. The mirror caught her gaze. She stepped closer, the glass reflecting a face she barely recognized in the dim light. Her fingers moved toward her head, trembling. She gripped the fabric, pulling it taut, then released it, her breath hitching. She turned away, pacing back to the wall, then returned to the mirror. This time, she grabbed the edges of the fabric with both hands, knuckles turning pale. She stared into her own eyes, searching for a version of herself that felt solid. The room felt smaller with every passing second. She reached up again, her fingers fumbling with the pins, then jerked her hands away as if burned. She backed into the bed and sat down, staring at the empty wall. The silence was absolute. She was paralyzed, caught in the friction between who she had been and who she was suddenly terrified to become. Layla lunged toward her wardrobe, yanking the doors open with a sharp, frantic motion. She pushed aside the familiar, modest tunics and scarves, letting them slide to the floor in a heap. All my clothes are boring. None are appropriate for this kind of party. Her hands moved with a sudden, jagged urgency. She pulled a tight black dress from the very back of the closet, the fabric cool and unforgiving against her palms. She discarded her usual head covering, replacing it with a leopard print piece, winding it loosely. She stood before the mirror, her breath hitching as she processed the change. The person staring back looked like a stranger, the lines of the dress clinging to her frame in ways that made her skin prickle. She reached up to adjust the fabric, her fingers trembling, then stopped mid-motion. The weight of the decision settled in her chest, a heavy, cold anchor of betrayal that fought against a strange, sharp pulse of rebellion. Should I take my hijab off? It would hurt my parents if I did that. Am I wearing my hijab for the sake of my parents or for the sake of Allah? I am already disobeying Allah. Why am I doing this? She did not look away. She stared at the reflection, testing the silence of the room, waiting for a sign that never came. She was no longer who she had been 10 minutes ago, and the transformation felt both inevitable and irreversible. The phone on the bed buzzed, a sharp rhythmic vibration that cut through the room. Layla did not hesitate.
I am outside your house.
She crossed the floor, grabbed a brown leather jacket, and pulled it over her shoulders. She stepped into the hallway, her movements stiff. The house was quiet, the air thick with a stillness that made every floorboard creak under her weight. She reached the front door, placed her hand on the cold handle, and twisted. Outside, the night air hit her like a physical blow, damp and biting. Nick stood by his car, the engine idling with a low, steady thrum. As she approached, his eyes moved over her, tracing the lines of her silhouette. A slow, thin smirk pulled at his mouth.
You look nice,
He said, his voice dropping into a low register. The words landed with a strange, heavy impact, a validation that washed away the lingering doubt in her chest. She felt the pulse of the engine through the soles of her shoes. Nice? Are you sure? She whispered, the question barely audible. Nick opened the door, gesturing for her to enter. She slid into the passenger seat, the leather cool against her skin, and looked back at the house one last time before he pulled away from the curb. The car slowed, then cut its engine. The silence that followed was immediate. The heavy front door swung open, and sound spilled out like a physical force. They arrived to the house party. She immediately feels very uncomfortable. The air was thick with the scent of stagnant smoke and cheap perfume, clinging to her throat. She pulled her brown leather jacket tighter around her frame, fingers digging into the fabric to steady her shaking hands. Everywhere she looked, people moved in jagged, rhythmic motions that felt alien to her. She drifted toward a corner, putting her back against the cool, damp drywall. The light flashed, catching the faces of strangers who stared straight through her. Nick looks at her.
Don't worry, I'm here. Just enjoy your time.
He shouted over the noise. She looked at him, then back at the swirling crowd, the crushing weight of her own visibility suddenly becoming impossible to ignore. The music hit a jagged peak, then surged again. Sarah pushed through the writhing mass of bodies with a predatory focus. She stopped 3 feet from Layla, her chin tilted up, eyes scanning the room to ensure she had an audience.
What are you doing with her?
The surrounding group stopped moving. A silence rippled outward, heavy and suffocating.
What is she wearing? Who wears a hijab to a party?
Sarah sneered, stepping closer until she occupied all of Layla's field of vision. The room erupted. It started as a low titter, then exploded into a cacophony of jeers and sharp, mocking laughter. Layla felt the heat rise in her face, a burning, stinging sensation that made her skin crawl. Every
You look
eye in the
completely
house was
lost.
fixed on
Not
her,
having fun?
judging, mocking, stripping away the thin layer of confidence she had built. The laughter did not stop. It grew louder. Layla shoved past a pair of laughing strangers and lunged for the door.
Layla, wait.
The night air hit her like a slap, sharp and biting against her flushed skin. She did not look back. She sprinted down the concrete steps. Her breath came in ragged, painful gasps that burned her throat, her lungs screaming for air. She realized with a jolt of terror that the street was empty. Layla skidded to a halt under the flickering yellow light of a street lamp. This was a bad idea. Nick will never like me. Her chest heaved, each breath a sharp, metallic sting in her lungs. She reached into her pocket, her fingers trembling as she pulled out the phone. The screen illuminated her face in a harsh, cold glow. A series of notifications from Yasmin crowded the display. She tapped the screen. She opens the messages from Yasmin.
I can't believe you missed the Quran lesson again. You said you'd make it. I saw photos of you with Nick at a party. What happened to you? I don't even recognize you anymore.
Layla reads the messages with her eyes wide. Everyone hates me. She dropped her arm, the phone dangling from her limp fingers. The world began to tilt. A sharp pain bloomed in the center of her chest. She tried to take a step, but her knees surrendered, collapsing on the ground. She hit the pavement hard. She falls unconscious. The street lamp buzzed once, then flickered out, leaving her in total, absolute blackness. Layla wakes up in a hospital bed. Her parents are next to her. Her mother's eyes look red from crying and worry.
Layla, are you awake?
Why? Why am I here?
You fainted on the street. Some boy named Nick called and said you are in the hospital. What were you doing with this boy?
Her father cuts in.
We should ask her another time. We shouldn't give her more stress.
He turns to Layla. He takes her hand and looks at her lovingly in her eyes.
You are okay. That's what matters. It would break me to lose my daughter this way.
He says with tears in his eyes. Layla is heartbroken seeing her parents like this. She never wanted to cause them pain. The next day, Layla sits in her room. She is off from school today. I've hurt all the closest people to me. I disappointed my parents. My best friend hates me. Why have I done all of this for a boy? I have to fix this. She looks at her phone, contemplating. She decides to text Yasmin. I know you are angry at me, but can we please meet and talk about it? Layla looks nervous as she waits for her reply. A while later, she finally receives a response.
I'm coming over.
They meet in Layla's room. The atmosphere is quiet and awkward. Finally, Layla speaks. I'm so sorry. Yasmin looks at her and replies,
Do you really care? It seems like the only thing you care about is Nick. Your whole world revolves around him. Are you willing to lose everything because of him?
Layla looks down, thinking what to say. She knows she is right. All she wanted was to impress Nick, make him like her the way she likes him. She realizes that she has changed and gone too far to impress Nick and become someone she isn't.
Please stop before it goes too far, and you will do something you will regret. Allah says, do not even come close to Zina. The more you meet him, talk to him, the more you like him, the bigger the risk.
Layla can't hold it in anymore. She cries. You're right. I've been so focused on just wanting him to like me. He made me feel special and validated, like I matter. Yasmin touches her shoulder.
What matters is what Allah thinks.
They hug. Layla cries in her arms. Later in the evening, Layla talks with her parents in the living room. Her father starts speaking.
We waited for everything to calm down to speak to you about this. But we need to know, who is Nick? Is he your boyfriend?
He struggles with saying that word. No, he's only a friend. But I developed feeling for him, she says, looking down, no eye contact. I tried to forget about him. Her father looks at her.
Layla, do not lose yourself for anyone.
I don't know how to forget about him.
First step is to strengthen your iman. Pray your daily prayers, fast, read the Quran, connect with it. Second is distance. Distance and time will make you forget about him and lose your feelings for him. It might be difficult at first, but I promise you, it will get easier.
Layla feels better after their conversation. Thank you so much. I will do my best, she says with a soft smile. Layla prays in her room in the night. Only her and her prayer mat. She raises her hands and makes a dua. Ya Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, forgive me. A tear falls. I have neglected my duties as a Muslim. From now on, you are my priority. Layla returns to school. She meets Nick outside of school. He stands at the corner. Layla stands a good distance away from him.
Hey, glad to see you are doing fine.
Normally, this sentence would make her blush and feel shy, but today she feels different. The interest is fading. She just wants to get this conversation over with. Hey, I've been thinking a lot and I can't continue talking and meeting. Nick notices her shift of energy towards him.
Well, I have to admit, that's actually admirable. That's real discipline. It's something I lack. Maybe I need Islam in my life,
he says with a smirk. Thanks to Allah. Islam is not to control us. It's about self-discipline, self-improvement. It's for our protection, to make us a better person and to protect us from harm.
That makes sense. You have opened my eyes. Thanks for that.
He throws his cigarette and walks away. She feels good how the conversation ended, and she is glad he understood. She feels she can breathe lighter. After school, Layla meets Yasmin at the mosque for a Quran lesson. Yasmin smiles. She feels relieved when she sees her.
Thank God you made it.
Of course, I won't miss it again. They study the Quran with their Quran teacher. Layla connects deeper with the Quran. The words of Allah has a great impact on her. She reads, O my people, this worldly life is only temporary enjoyment, and indeed, the hereafter, that is the home of permanent settlement. 40 to 39. Layla returns home in the evening. Her mother Amina is in the kitchen preparing dinner. Amina says with a smile,
Assalamu alaikum, dear.
Walaikum. Assalam, Mom. Do you need help with cooking?
I'd like that. Jazakallah khair. I appreciate it. You can start by cutting the vegetables.
Layla helps her mother in the kitchen. Her mother smiles at her lovingly. Allah forgives what people can't forget. He heals what you don't even say out loud. So turn back to Him, not because you're perfect, but because His mercy is. The end.